My son Connor and I had always been an unbreakable unit. After his mother passed away when he was 12, it was just the two of us against the world. We had our rituals, our Saturday morning fishing trips, our shared love for bad sci-fi movies, and a language of inside jokes that only we understood. We were a team. I thought I was giving him the gift of a complete family when I married Helena 4 years ago. I thought I had found someone who could love him as her own, and that he would finally have a mother figure again. Looking back, I see now that I was just paving the way for a viper to enter our lives. Helena was a master of subtle manipulation. She was warm and attentive with Connor, always asking about his life, his hobbies, and his friends. She seemed to cherish our father-son bond, even suggesting activities for us to do together. But her affection was a calculated move, a strategy to study our relationship and find the weak points she could exploit. The changes started small, almost imperceptible. She'd schedule a family dinner on a weekend I'd planned to take Connor fishing, always with a charming smile and a perfectly logical reason. She'd suggest Connor invite his friends over when we had planned a quiet night in, again, with a reasonable excuse. I didn't want to be the overbearing, jealous dad, so I went along with it. I told myself it was for the good of the family. The real campaign began when Connor started dating Melissa in college. Helena immediately inserted herself into their lives, positioning herself as a maternal confidant to Melissa. She and Melissa would spend hours on the phone discussing wedding plans, career paths, and future homes. I was slowly and expertly pushed to the periphery of my own son's life. When Connor proposed to Melissa, I found out 2 hours after Helena did. The engagement, an event that should have been a moment of shared joy, became the final nail in the coffin of my relationship with my son. The wedding planning became Helena's full-time job. She controlled every detail: the venue, the flowers, the menu, the music. She and Melissa were a whirlwind of planning, while I was consulted on a single decision: chicken or fish. I was still the father of the groom, though. I was still going to walk my son down the aisle. I was still giving a speech. I was still his dad, right? 3 weeks before the wedding, Connor called me. His voice was strained. He explained that Helena had helped him realize that having too many parents involved in the ceremony would be overwhelming for Melissa's family. Since Helena had been so involved in the planning, and Melissa was so close to her, perhaps it would be better if Helena walked him down the aisle instead. My gut twisted, but I agreed. I told myself I was being the bigger person, that I was putting Connor's happiness first. I was a fool. Then came the second call. He was cutting the guest list. Helena had helped him realize they should keep it small and intimate, just the people who had been truly supportive during their engagement. I wasn't on the list. My own son's wedding, and I wasn't invited. Helena had painted me as unsupportive and negative, twisting my quiet compliance into resistance and my silence into disapproval. Connor apologized, saying he hoped I would understand that this was about starting his marriage on a positive note, free of family tension. He'd let Helena convince him that my presence would make things awkward. I hung up the phone in a daze, the world spinning around me. 23 years of being his father, erased by a woman who had been in his life for just 4. The shock gave way to a cold, hard anger. This was not a coincidence, it was a pattern. I started to dig, and what I found was more insidious than I could have imagined. I found Helena's old social media profiles under her maiden name. What I uncovered was a chilling history of betrayal. She had been married twice before. Both marriages ended in disaster, and in both cases, she had systematically alienated the ex-husband's children from their fathers. I found forum posts, blog comments, and an old newspaper article detailing a custody dispute where she was accused of parental alienation. She had a system, a playbook for destroying existing family bonds and replacing them with her own self-serving version of a family. But the most damning discovery was yet to come. As I delved into public records, I found something that changed everything. Helena's divorce from her second husband was never finalized. A clerical error had left them technically still married when she married me. My wife was a bigamist. Our marriage was invalid. She had used my home, my resources, and my relationship with my son to build a life founded on a lie. The wedding was in 5 days. I called my lawyer and confirmed what I'd found. Then I decided what I had to do. I wasn't going to confront her in private. I wasn't going to have a quiet conversation with Connor. She wanted her perfect wedding moment. I was going to give it to her, and then I was going to watch it all come crashing down. On the day of the wedding, I drove to the venue and waited in the parking lot. I watched as the guests poured out of the ceremony hall, heading to the receiving line. I knew Helena would be standing there, accepting congratulations as the proud stepmother who had masterminded the day. I walked up to the receiving line. Connor saw me first, and his face went white. Helena turned, and her expression shifted from confusion to sheer panic. "Congratulations on the wedding," I said, my voice cutting through the celebratory chatter. "And congratulations on your bigamy charge." I handed Helena an envelope containing the legal documents. Her marriage certificates, divorce records, and the police report I had filed that morning. I then handed a second envelope to Connor, with copies of her social media posts detailing her insidious pattern of parental alienation. "Your stepmother is still married to her second husband," I announced to the growing crowd. "Our marriage is invalid, and she has been committing fraud for 4 years. Helena tried to grab the envelopes from Connor, but he was already reading. His face was a mask of shock and horror as he pieced together the betrayal. "She's done this before," I continued, making sure my voice carried. "She finds men with children, marries them illegally, and then systematically destroys their relationships with their kids." Melissa was reading over Connor's shoulder now. Guests were pulling out their phones, snapping photos of the documents. Helena stammered, but it was too late. I had also invited a process server to the wedding, and as she stood there in her wedding dress, she was served with bigamy and fraud charges and a restraining order. Connor found me in the parking lot an hour later, his tuxedo unbuttoned, his face a roadmap of grief and confusion. "Dad," he said, his voice breaking, "I'm so sorry. I don't know how she made me believe those things about you." We talked for 2 hours, and he recounted all of her subtle manipulations, the ways she had twisted my words and convinced him that I was the problem. Helena is now fighting legal battles, and her fraudulent marriage to me has been annulled. Connor and Melissa are planning a new, smaller ceremony. Just close friends and real family this time. I'll be walking him down the aisle and giving a speech. Not one about revenge, but about the importance of loyalty and the strength it takes to see manipulation for what it is. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's life. It's about revealing their true nature and letting them destroy themselves. Helena was a master of manipulation, but in the end, her own lies became her downfall. I simply made sure everyone was watching when it happened. If you've ever felt like your family was being torn apart by someone you trusted, remember this: the truth always finds a way to reveal itself. Sometimes you just have to be patient enough to find it and brave enough to share it.